Welcome to the OK Let's Learn podcast. This is two podcasts in one. One where we dive into tons of family-friendly books and stories, and another where we just dive into tons of interesting topics. My name is Kevin O'Keefe, and up front today, I want to let you know that if you enjoy the podcast, consider joining us as a founding member over at patreon.com. So today, okay, let's learn all about the history of reading glasses. Yes, reading. Trust me, if you're young, and I say young, consider yourself to be mid-age. Once you turn 40, once you head into the second part of your life, understand that you're going to get reading glasses. You're going to need them. So we will dive into everything. When they first came on the scene, what did people do when they couldn't read? What are the actual problems? Why has this happened to all of us? And yes, with my experience, hey, what I started thinking of, and the reason I put this podcast together is, oh my goodness, we're disabled, right? You don't have your eyeglasses. You starts off without seeing the close print right in front of you, but there you can't see. It's getting worse and worse for me. At age 64, I can't see the highway signs. So now I need glasses so I can see far away. And I'm thinking to myself, what did people do back in the day? The Greeks, the Romans, all these scholars, the monks, they're out of business. So the consequences of getting older, so much is there. And yeah, so let's learn all about the history of reading glasses. So how did this start with me? It's actually so funny when I think about it. I'm laying down in bed next to Mrs. O'Keefe, and I wasn't really sure, but I just figured out it had to have been sometime in the early 2000s, before we were able to read pretty much all the time on our smartphones and even our tablets. This was before the iPhone came out. We were texting, we had our Blackberries, but we weren't reading. So I was still reading magazines, and I'm laying down in bed one night, and I say out loud to myself, it was either Newsweek or Time magazine, and I said out loud to Mrs. O'Keefe, I said, what is wrong with Newsweek? Why are they making the print and the words and the letters so much smaller? It's ridiculous. But it was like, Mrs. O'Keefe looks at me, Kevin, I think you need reading glasses. And I'll say this up front, the ladies apparently need them earlier than the guys, so she was tuned into it and I wasn't. Again, if you're young, what's the first clue that, you're having a problem? When all of a sudden you have to look at something, if you're holding up your phone or whatever, and you're having trouble focusing. It is blurry, of course, but you have to move it further away for you to be able to see it. That's the focusing. That's the issue with our eyes and what's happening. But at the time, I had no clue. I was lucky. I never needed any eyeglasses at all my entire life until this point. But let's upfront establish why exactly we need eyeglasses in the first place. The change actually happens a lot sooner than we all think. When we're young, our eyes have this unbelievable ability to change focus from something far away to something right in front of us. This is called accommodation. Our accommodation gradually declines with age, with the most significant drop-off occurring sometime between the age of 20 and 50, right? Everyone's different. We generally don't notice the problem immediately, or really sometimes at all, like I did, because the young eyes have far more focusing abilities than we need for ordinary reading. Eventually, we cross the no going back line. For most people, The difficulty seeing things up close begins sometime in our 40s, often around age 45. The National Eye Institute actually says that it happens to everyone who gets old enough. And there's a name for this. It's called presbyopia. Presbyopia. Now let's dive into what actually is happening inside our eye, because it's actually pretty simple. Inside our eye is a natural lens, right? When we're young, the lens is flexible. When you look at something, a book, newspaper, phone, the lens changes shapes and becomes more curved so that the words come into focus. As we age, the natural lens becomes stiffer and less flexible. It no longer can change shape enough to focus properly on close objects, right? That's presbyopia. So what is it that the reading glasses fix? Well, the reading glasses has a convex lens, which is an optical lens that bulges outward in the center, making it thicker in the middle and thinner in the edges, right? So because of this physical shape, it acts as this natural lens that we lose. When parallel light rays pass through it, the lens bends the light inward so the rays meet at a singular focal point. That is what is actually happening naturally in our eyes as we're younger, but what reading glasses basically help and fix. So what happened in ancient times? How did they begin to address this issue, right? Well, think about it. In nature, you're looking through some type of transparent glass. In our case, you just want to look through a glass of water, if you've ever done that, and look what's on the other side. Yeah, all of a sudden it's larger. Well, basically in antiquity, they understood this, that transparent objects could make things appear larger. The Roman writer Seneca, 2,000 years ago, described letters appearing larger when they viewed it through a glass vessel. Again, just like I just mentioned, filled with water. But the Greeks and Romans did not have eyeglasses. For most of human history, if age took away your ability to read close, there was nothing you could do about it. Everything changed around the year 1000. There was this Islamic scholar named Al-Hazan. He lived from 965 to 1040, and he became one of history's most important early scholars of optics. He studied light and vision and helped establish that we see because light enters the eye, not vice versa, right? He didn't invent eyeglasses, but his work helped build the foundation for understanding the lenses. What came first was the reading stone. This was basically, for lack of a better way of explaining it, a polished, curved, nice, fairly big rock that you would slide across manuscripts and pages. Monks would use these. And we actually have versions of these, and I've seen them out there, like clear, lucite type of plastic where you could just literally go across a page and everything is magnified, as opposed to having our standard magnifying glasses. But it wasn't impractical, but it was laborious. You just needed to move with what has been written on the page, and obviously you could scratch important documents. Well, the next big development was in the 1200s. This English scholar, Roger Bacon, he wrote extensively about optics. Around 1267, he added on to what Alhazen had initially introduced, and now all the pieces were starting to come together. There was really a lot more understanding of optics. There was better glass making, and craftsmen were better able to shape the lenses. This was huge. So Bacon didn't invent spectacles or eyeglasses, but he definitely advanced the field. And now we had the first eyeglasses that came on the scene, probably around 1280 or so. And the crazy thing is we don't know who invented them. The early spectacles, and you've seen this through history, right? They didn't have the arms over the years. They were just two round lenses connected by a rivet resting right there on your nose. The next big moment was 1306. There was this Italian Dominican friar. His name was Giordano da Pisa. He delivered a sermon in which he said eyeglasses had been invented more than 20 years before. This is our first actual solid written down evidence for dating the invention. Another friar, Alessandro della Spina, was credited with learning how spectacles were made and helping spread the whole technique. So we don't know who specifically invented them. We know that everything was happening here around this time in northern Italy. And now the 1400s come. And what was the next big development? Well, everything that I've mentioned so far, you got very few, a tiny, tiny percentage of people that were actually needing to read print, right? Think about it. It's the monks. But now Johannes Gutenberg comes along, invents the printing press, and now books are being produced and everyone is reading. At least a lot more people were reading, and the demand for reading glasses goes through the roof. So now we're into the 1400s and the 1500s, and eyeglasses were made to see things further away, far away. So they developed concave lenses that obviously solved the problem of people who were nearsighted. So now glasses both could correct things that were close up that they couldn't read and obviously further away. The next big development was 1604, Johannes Kepler. He was an astronomer and he published this really important work that explained how the human eye focuses light. People already knew that certain lenses improved vision, but Kepler helped explain why they work. Because here's the important chronology here that's important to remember. Reading glasses came before microscopes and telescopes. You can go back to my earlier podcast episode on Anton van Leeuwenhoek, right? He was the one that discovered, yes, that you could have a microscope. He invented it, and he first saw those microorganisms under the lens, right? This wasn't possible without, obviously, the invention of reading glasses. So now what came next with eyeglasses? And you would think this would have happened so much earlier, but it didn't. In 1727, an English eye doctor, Edward Scarlett, he was associated with putting those arms on the lenses so they could extend over our ears. Yes, and then in 1780, our friend Benjamin Franklin, he arrives on the scene with bifocals. I think a lot of you know this, right? He needed one type of correction for distance and another for reading, which is my issue right now. He got tired of switching the glasses back and forth, so he combined them into one. He called them double spectacles. We call them bifocals. So now we're into the 1800s, and with the Industrial Revolution, they became more and more for almost everyone on the planet, and now they became mass-produced. So it seemed like everyone was wearing them, and they were widely available, and obviously the cost came down significantly. And we all know this, so now we're into the 1900s, and today you can get eyeglasses for $1 at the dollar store, right? And ultimately, this is what I have. And most of us that are my age, because I tell you what, some of these reading glasses, well, in my case, they're lasting for years, just one. And then you get your next one and it breaks the next day. So I have some in the car, I have some at work, I have some at home, like literally different places throughout the home. So if something happens, I'm saved. And again, if you haven't entered this part of your life, just know this. You go to the dollar store and that display is front and center, right? Almost right by the cash registers. and they have different strengths. And yes, when you first need those reading glasses, it's going to be the strength of 1, then it's 1.5, and then it's 2. And yes, as you get older, it seems to keep climbing. They have a way for you to determine what you need. You look up at this mirror and you step back. And yeah, I think I'm up to a 2.5 at this point. Now, to wrap up the podcast, you obviously need to see an eye doctor. Once this starts happening with your vision being blurred, you got to make sure that there's no problem with your eyes. So up front, not only is it about seeing what strength you need, see if you need a prescription, see if one eye is stronger than another, your eye doctor can detect problems such as cataracts, where the eye's natural lens become cloudy. You also have glaucoma, which can damage the optic nerve and often develops without noticeable early symptoms. And you got macular degeneration, which can damage central vision, and retinal problems, right? Vision changes related to conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure. Just like you go to your regular doctor, you have to go to an eye doctor. My father, again, I've mentioned him in many of my podcasts, but he now is really starting to have issues with his eyes. And hey, just like anything else you got to take care of, you got to make sure you take care of your eyes. And one final point that's obvious, but I got to say it, right? Anything that happens out of the ordinary, you go immediately to an eye doctor, whether that's sudden loss of vision, flashes of light, you got floaters that are out there, all of a sudden you're seeing something like little specks and up and down in your eyesight, right? These things are not normal. Anytime that something's not normal with your eyes, I mean, for Pete's sakes, nothing is more important than your eyesight. So, friends, I hope you've enjoyed this journey learning all about the history of eyeglasses. Reach out to me at kevmok21@gmail.com. As I say all the time, we are out there on any social media platform, the most popular, Facebook, X, Spotify. We are on now Substack. And yes, if you're so inclined, always appreciate the support. It does cost money to deliver these podcasts. So if you could be a supporter on patreon.com, please consider it. And of course, more than appreciate that. Until next time, have fun and keep learning.